On November 18, 1978, more than 900 members of the People's Temple cult died as a result of drinking Kool-Aid mixed with cyanide poisoning after their leader, Reverend Jim Jones, instructed them to do so. Some drank the poison willingly, some had it forced down their throats, and some had the poison forcibly injected into their backs. Who was Reverend Jim Jones, and what events led up to the Jonestown Massacre? We'll explore all of that and more on Inquisitive Maya. Reverend Jim Jones was born on May 13, 1931, to Lynetta Putnam and Jim Jones Sr. His mother never wanted a child, and shortly after his birth, his father had a mental breakdown, rendering him unable to work. The Joneses struggled financially and eventually moved in with their family in Lynn, Indiana. Lynn was a conservative town, and most of the townspeople were churchgoers. The town also had a prominent KKK membership. From the age of 6, Jim Jones would roam the streets before and after school while his mother was at work. Women in the town would notice him wandering around by himself and felt bad for him. They would invite him to their houses for snacks, and it was through one of these women that Jim was introduced to religion, and he began attending the Church of Nazarene with these women regularly. Jim was drawn to the preacher and would recite sermons and quote Bible verses. He became increasingly interested in religion, and he attended churches from every denomination in his town. As a child, he would practice giving sermons to forest animals, which led some to believe that he was a weird kid. At the age of 9, Jim began claiming he had special powers. One day, he told the townspeople that he could fly. They watched in disbelief as he climbed onto a roof and jumped off and ended up breaking his arm. Jim would also collect dead animals and give them animal funerals. At the age of 10, Jones became obsessed with Adolf Hitler. He would roleplay as Hitler and recruit smaller children to play mini stormtroopers. Eventually, Jim's parents divorced, and he and his mother moved to Richmond. After graduating high school, Jim married a young nurse named Marceline Baldwin, and the two moved to Indianapolis, Indiana, where Jim attended Butler University. They married in a joint wedding with Marceline's sister and her husband. Afterwards, the couple had one biological son named Stephen Jones and adopted children of Korean American, African American, and Native American descent. Indianapolis was filled with members of the Ku Klux Klan, and it was during his time living there that Jim grew passionate about racial integration and socialism. In 1952, he became a student pastor at Somerset Methodist Church. He studied other pastors and came to the conclusion that in order to attract a large following, he should develop a flamboyant Pentecostal style of preaching and make faith healing a part of his preaching. Because of this, he successfully attracted a large following and was invited to speak at assemblies and conventions in Indiana and other states. During his services, he would invite those who were suffering from ailments up so that he could lay hands on them and heal them. He also put much emphasis on integration, which was not common during this time. Jones' preaching of integration attracted many people who believed in equality, but it also led to the end of his employment at Somerset Methodist Church. Churches in Indianapolis were segregated, and they did not want Black people attending. Jim was disgusted by this and quit. He created his own church, which eventually adopted the name the People's Temple Full Gospel Church in 1955. People of all races were attracted to the People's Temple Church. Jim focused heavily on racial integration and became very involved in the civil rights movement. Because of this, white churches were heavily critical of Jim Jones. He received threats, and a swastika symbol was painted on the People's Temple. But it was Jim's preaching about racial integration and equality that attracted so many to his church. In the summer of 1964, Jim, his family, and 140 members of his church moved to the town of Ukiah in California. Here, Jim was able to appeal to young, college-educated white people involved in the progressive political scene. The People's Temple Church was growing rapidly, and by the 1970s, it was the largest congregation within its denomination. It grew to offer a number of free services, including healthcare checks, childcare, and care for the elderly and mentally ill. When speaking of the People's Temple, Stephen Jones, Jim Jones's son, said, "I lived in a community that was filled with every walk of life, every color in the rainbow, and every level of education. For the most part, we lived in harmony most of the time. When speaking of his childhood, he said, "It was not fake. I am so grateful for that because it showed me the truth of that, the beauty of that, and the importance of that. So I love that about him." Religious scholar John R. Hall stated that the People's Temple was an activist religious social movement committed to racial integration, social and economic justice, peace, and other progressive and radical political causes. It was a significant political force in the left liberal scene in California. Although the People's Temple began as a Christian movement, Jones rebelled against traditional Christianity over time. He argued that it kept people enslaved and encouraged his members to adopt a form of apostolic socialism and allegiance to the community. After moving to California, the People's Temple began receiving negative media coverage. This led to Jones viewing the media as an enemy and, more specifically, an agent of the devil. In 1973, 8 prominent members of the church left, and then rumors about Jones engaging in financial abuse, mind control, and tax evasion started to spread, and they were true. In response to this pressure, Jones proposed the idea of leaving the United States. And in 1974, Jones successfully convinced his followers to move with him to Guyana, where they would create their own utopian society, which would come to be known as Jonestown. It wouldn't be until 1977 that the creation of Jonestown was complete. Jonestown had a school, daycare, medical clinic, pharmacy, basketball team, and much more. Over 900 of Jones's followers moved to Jonestown, unaware of the dire fate that awaited them. When people first arrived at Jonestown, children were separated from their parents and were expected to live in different houses. This was done because Jim Jones believed that family bonds were selfish. Jonestown was located in a jungle in Guyana, and the jungle soils were too thin, and as a result, members could not grow food, so they were starving. It was also extremely hot and filled with a multitude of wildlife and insects. But the worst was yet to come. People didn't fully understand how abusive Jim Jones was, but it was going to be made abundantly clear soon. A couple of days after arriving in Jonestown, a man was asked how he liked it by his cousin. He responded by saying he didn't because he was separated from his daughter. Unfortunately, the man's cousin reported him to Jim Jones, and at the next meeting, Jones called the man up and had him severely beaten by another member. Although Jonestown didn't have a prison system, there were various forms of punishments used against members viewed as having disciplinary problems. Punishments included imprisonment in a 6x4 by 3 foot plywood box and forcing children to spend the night at the bottom of a well, sometimes upside down. Jones would continuously use threats of blackmail, violence, and death to manipulate and instill fear into his followers. He also staged suicide rehearsals to test their faith. He would encourage them to drink a beverage, and once they finished, he would lie and say that it was poison to see their reactions. Many people wanted to leave Jonestown, but it was difficult because they were in a jungle, Jones had taken their passports, and they ran the risk of being reported to Jones by his most devoted followers. Word of Jones's abuse began to spread, and in 1977, Congressman Leo Ryan heard of it. He was told that there was a member named Bob Houston who had died under suspicious circumstances. Coincidentally, Bob Houston's father, Sammy, had been Ryan's college roommate many years prior. Ryan reached out to Sammy, and he also expressed concerns regarding his son's death. There were also former members of the People's Temple who expressed serious concerns to Ryan about the safety of current members. On May 12, 1978, another member of Jonestown named Debbie Layton decided to leave. She was able to make it to the U.S. Embassy in Georgetown, Guyana, and told them that she believed Jim Jones was going to force all members of Jonestown to commit suicide. When Jones heard of this, he became paranoid and enraged. He seriously considered shooting and poisoning the members of Jonestown right then and there, but his son, Stephen, talked him out of it. After hearing the allegations made by concerned relatives and Debbie Layton, Congressman Ryan decided that he would visit Jonestown along with a camera crew and some of the members' concerned relatives. When Jim Jones notified his followers that the congressman would be visiting, many of them expressed their disapproval of this by drafting an affidavit dictated by the leadership and signed a petition opposing the visit. Nevertheless, Congressman Ryan and his entourage were still going to Jonestown. To prepare for this, Jones made his members rehearse their responses to potential questions that Ryan might ask. He wanted them to say that they loved living in Jonestown and wouldn't dream of leaving. But that wasn't completely true. While there were members who were very devoted to Jonestown and didn't want to leave, there were also many who hated it but remained silent out of fear. On November 14, 1978, Congressman Leo Ryan, journalist Tim Reiterman, photojournalist Greg Robinson, a reporter and crew from NBC, and several concerned relatives headed to Guyana to visit Jonestown. Little did they know, some of them would not return to the United States alive. They arrived in Jonestown on November 17th. Initially, the members of the People's Temple seemed very satisfied with their living conditions. They did some interviews with the news crew and said that they were safe and could leave if they wanted to, but that they didn't want to. They gave Ryan and his crew a tour and even performed for them. Everything was going well, and the members of Jonestown appeared to be happy. But as the day went on, the truth would begin to reveal itself. It started with 2 Jonestown members smuggling a note to Congressman Ryan and his crew that read, "Please help us get out of Jonestown." Soon, the list of defectors grew to at least 16. It was clear that Jones was bothered by this. He was not well and appeared to be highly agitated. At the end of Congressman Ryan's 2-day visit, Jim's loyal followers watched in disgust as the defectors prepared to leave. One of the temple members grabbed Ryan, held a knife to his throat, and threatened to slit it. Fortunately, the man was subdued. Ryan began to realize that his life was in danger and headed out with his crew and the defectors. There were more temple members who wanted to leave with them, but there wasn't enough seating on the planes, so they said they'd come back for them. Little did they know, Jim Jones had already ordered some of his followers to wait at the airstrip for them to arrive and to kill them. As they were leaving, the defectors were suspicious of one of the temple members joining them. His name was Larry Layton, and he was one of Jones' most loyal followers. It didn't make sense that he also wanted to leave Jonestown, so they advised that the congressman's crew keep eyes on him. As they arrived to the airport terminal, they saw the 2 planes that would be taking them back to the United States. They also saw a red trailer filled with men who were members of the People's Temple. The congressman, his crew, and the defectors began loading onto the plane when the men from the trailer started shooting at them. The fake defector, Larry Layton, also started shooting. Ryan, 3 journalists, and one of the defectors were killed in the ambush. Others were injured but managed to survive by running into the jungle and hiding. Once word of Congressman Ryan's death got back to Jim Jones, he told his followers of what had happened and insisted that they needed to kill themselves before the U.S. government came for them. He was able to convince some of them that because of the congressman's death, the U.S. government would kill them and their children, and it was better to commit suicide.
How very much I've loved you. How very much I've tried my best to give you the good life. But in spite of all of that I've tried, a handful of our people with their lives have made our life impossible. There's no way to detach ourselves from what's happened today. Not only we're in a compound situation, not only are there those who have left and committed the betrayal of the century. Some have stolen children from others, and they're in pursuit right now to kill them because they stole their children. And we are sitting here waiting on a powder keg. I don't think this is what we want to do with our babies. I don't think that's what we had in mind to do with our babies. It was said by the greatest of prophets from time immemorial, no man takes my life from me, I lay my life down. So to sit here and wait for the catastrophe that's going to happen on that airplane, it's going to be a catastrophe. Almost happened here. Almost happened. The congressman was nearly killed here. But you can't steal people's children. You can't take off with people's children without expecting a violent reaction. And that's not so unfamiliar to us either. If we even if we were Judeo-Christian, if we weren't communists. The world, the kingdom, suffereth violence, and the violence shall take it by force. If we can't live in peace, then let's die in peace.
There was a woman named Christine Miller who spoke up in the midst of this and disagreed with Jones. She suggested that they should leave to Russia instead of killing themselves. She didn't want to die, and she made that clear.
He's responsible for it. He brought these people to us. He and Deanna Myrtle. But people in San Francisco will not be idle over this. They'll not take our death in vain, you know. Yes, Christine.
Is it too late for Russia?
Here's why it's too late for Russia. They killed. They started to kill. That's why it makes it too late for Russia. Otherwise, I'd said, Russia, you bet your life. But it's too late. I can't control these people. They're out there. They've gone with their guns, and it's too late. And once we kill anybody, at least that's the way I've always put my lot with you. If one of my people do something, it's me. And they say, I don't have to take the blame for this, but I don't live that way. They deliver up Ujara, who tried to get the man back here. Ujara, whose mother has been lying on him and trying to break up this family, and they've all agreed to kill us by any means necessary. You think I'm going to deliver them, Ujara? Not on your life. No. No, you're not going. You're not going. You're not going. I can't live that way. I cannot live that way. I've lived for all, and I'll die for all. I've been living on hope for a long time, Christine. I appreciate you've always been a very good agitator. I like agitation because you got to see two sides of one issue, two sides of a question. But what those people are going to get done, what they get through, will make our life. They give us a code. You can check on there and see if it's on the code. You can check with Russia to see if they'll take us in immediately. Otherwise, we die. I don't know what else you say to these people. But to me, death is not a fearful thing. It's living this treachery. I have never seen anything like this before in my life. I've never seen people take the law and do in their own hands and provoke us and try to purposely agitate murder of children. And Christine, it's not worth living like this. Not worth living like this.
I think that there were too few who left for 1,200 people to give them their lives for those people that left.
You know how many left?
20 odd. That's a small
20 odd. 20 odd.
Compared to what's here.
20 odd. But what's going to happen when they don't leave? I hope that they could leave, but what's going to happen when they don't leave?
You mean the people here?
Yeah, what's going to happen to us when they don't leave, when they get on the plane and the plane goes down?
I don't think it'll go down.
You don't think it'll go down? I wish I could tell you were right, but I'm right. There's one man there who blames, and rightfully so, Debbie Blakey for the murder of his mother. And he'll stop that pilot by any means necessary. He'll do it. That plane will come out of the air. There's no way you fly a plane without a pilot.
I wasn't speaking about that plane. I was speaking about the plane for us to go to Russia.
To Russia. You think Russia's going to want? No, not going to. We're not. You think Russia's going to want us with all this stigma? We had some value, but now we don't have any value.
Well, I don't see it like that. I mean, I feel like that as long as there's life, there's hope. That's my faith.
Well, everybody dies. Someplace that hope runs out because everybody dies. I haven't seen anybody yet that didn't die. And I like to choose my own kind of death for a change. I'm tired of being tormented to hell. That's what I'm tired of. Tired of it. There's life in my hands, and I certainly don't have life in my hand. But I'm going to tell you, Christine, without me, life has no meaning. I'm the best friend you'll ever have. One I have to pay. I'm standing with you, Jara. I'm standing with those people. It's suicide. They have done it. Stone has done it. Somebody ought to. Somebody. Can they talk? Can they not talk to San Francisco? See, the Stone does not get by with this infamy. This is infamy. He has done the thing he wanted to do. To have us destroyed.
When we destroy ourselves, we're defeated. We let them, the enemy, defeat us.
Did you see I live to fight no more forever?
Yes, I saw that.
Did you not have some sense of pride and victory in that man? He would not subject himself to the will and whim of people who tell that they're going to come in whenever they please and push into our house, come when they please, take who they want to, talk to who they want to. Is that living? That's not living to me. That's not freedom. That's not the kind of freedom I sought.
But I think where they made their mistake is when they stopped to rest. If they had gone on, they would have made it. But they stopped to rest.
See? It's over, sister. It's over. We made that day, we made a beautiful day. And let's make it a beautiful day. That's what
We win when we go down. Tim Stone has nobody else to hate. He has nobody else to hate. Then he'll destroy himself. I'm speaking here not as the administrator. I'm speaking as a prophet today. I wouldn't step in this seat and talk so serious if I didn't know what I was talking about. If there's any way to call back the immense amount of damage that's going to be done. But I cannot separate myself from the pain of my people. And you can't either, Christine, if you stop to think about it. You can't separate yourself. We've walked too long together.
I know that, but I still think as an individual, I have a right to
You do, and I'm listening.
what I think, what I feel, and I think we all have a right to our own destiny as individuals.
Right.
And I think I have a right to choose mine, and everybody else has a right to choose theirs. You know?
I'm not criticizing. I'm not trying to. What's that? That's what 20 people said today with their lives.
I think I still have a right to my own opinion.
I'm not taking it from you. I'm not taking it from you.
Christine, you're only standing here because he was here in the first place. So I don't know what you're talking about, having an individual life. Your life has been extended to the day that you're standing there because of him.
Voice back there, she has much right to speak to anybody else, too. What'd you say, Luby? Well, you'll regret that this very day if you don't die. You'll regret it if you don't die. You'll regret it. If you don't die, you'll regret it.
Too many people.
I saved them, but I made my example. I made my expression. I made my manifestation, and the world was ready, not ready for me. Paul said, I was a man born out of due season. I've been born out of due season just like all we are, and the best testimony we can make is to leave this goddamn world. Peace.
I'm not talking to her. Will you let me talk?
You're talking.
Would you make her sit down and let me talk while I'm on the floor, or let her talk?
Property tell the leader what to do. It really is. I've listened to you. You asked me about Russia. I'm right now making a call to Russia.
Unfortunately, Christine would be injected with the poison and die. I found these recordings to be disheartening and honestly angering. I noticed that when Christine speaks, the crowd voices their disapproval by repeatedly saying no to her objections. Yet when Jones speak, they agree and exclaim, "That's right," repeatedly. Another thing that stood out to me is the crowd's reaction to Jones saying, "I'm telling you, Christine, without me, life has no meaning. I'm the best friend you'll ever have." Once again, the crowd applauds and agrees with him. I truly feel bad for Christine. At one point, a woman shouts at her, "You must be scared to die." Christine responds by saying she's not talking to her, and the woman shouts angrily, "Well, I'm talking to you." It seems like Christine was truly alone. She fought so hard to stay alive. She fought for the children to stay alive. Christine was 60 years old when she was killed. There were doctors and nurses at Jonestown who mixed Kool-Aid with cyanide poisoning and put the mixture in barrels and syringes. Jones' most loyal followers stood around with guns, ready to kill anyone who tried to escape. One by one, parents walked up to the barrels and gave their babies and young children the Kool-Aid to drink. Within minutes, they would start convulsing and die a painful death. There was a 12-year-old girl named Julie Ann Runnels who didn't want to drink the poison and kept spitting it out. Some nurses held her down and forced the poison down her throat, and she eventually died. Jones continued to encourage the parents to give their children the poison. After doing so, the parents would drink the poison themselves and also die. Many of those who refused to drink the mixture had it forcibly injected into their backs. Jim Jones died by a single gunshot wound to his head. It is unclear whether he shot himself or if someone else did it. Over 900 members of the People's Temple died on November 18, 1978 in Jonestown. They were mothers, fathers, children, aunts, uncles, and grandparents. Over 300 were children and babies who lost their lives far too soon. They deserve to be here. All of the victims of the Jonestown Massacre do. Although there were those who were forced to drink the poison, there were also many who drank it willingly. Many have wondered, why would they do that? Indoctrination is powerful. Cult leaders prey on those who are vulnerable. I believe that many who joined the People's Temple did so at a point in their lives where they were vulnerable and needed help. Jones could sense this and took advantage of them. When speaking of his father, Stephen Jones stated, "My father could in an instant identify what was most important to you, and probably what you were most afraid of. He could quickly convey that he was the one to protect you from what you were afraid of, and to help you have whatever it is that you longed for." Jim Jones was a master manipulator who took advantage of people at their weakest point. The members of the People's Temple believed in something that was meaningful to them. Jones sold them the idea of a society where racism, sexism, classism, and hate didn't exist. Many of them had been victims of these things. The idea of living in a world where that didn't exist drew them in. Christine Miller displayed an immense amount of bravery that night, speaking out against Jones. I'm sure there were more who felt the same way, but were too afraid to say anything. Jones' security stood around with guns ready to kill those who tried to escape. My heart breaks for the members of the People's Temple, especially the children who had no choice in their fate. I wish they had different endings. I wish they had the chance to truly live.